We're like shooting out, I love this, and I love that, and I love this and that, and you find yourself all tangled up. And that's what happens, by the way, throughout the years. You get so tangled up in the things you're into that when it comes to Rosh Hashanah time, you kind of dread that you have to have 2 days in shul, because, I don't spend 2 days on my bike. I don't spend 2 days listening to my favorite tunes. I don't spend 2 days doing nothing. And God's only one slice of the pie. How am I supposed to spend 2 days on this? Because we all got ourselves so tangled up in a web of the things we love. The point is to purify that. You can have all those things. Just, it's all a function of your love of God. So, unattached. Cut off the webbings that have attached you and blinded you to your true desire. And by the way, it is your true desire. Your true desire is to connect with God. If you have that, you have everything. If you're connected to God, then nothing positive nor perceived negative gets in your way. You're all set if you're connecting to God. Okay? And you can have your fancy house and your fancy car and your fancy wife and your fancy kids. You're connected to God, you're connected. You can have it or you cannot have it. You're connected to God, you have everything. So, why is one the function of cutting and the other the function of rooting, of pruning? It's because the things you love, do you notice that some of the things you love are forbidden? You have to cut those out. Those are out. Okay? Things you love that are forbidden are out. Things you love that are permitted are pruned. What does it mean to prune them? It means I need to adjust how I relate to them. I have to adjust how I relate to those particular things. Like, for example, Josh, music, permitted or forbidden?
What are you listening to?
Let's say it's dignified, fine music. Permitted or... It's permitted. So, I don't have to cut it out of... You have to cut music out of your life? No. I have to prune it, maybe get the stuff that's a little more violent and swearing and sexual. Maybe I do have to cut that out. That's messing me up. That would be pruning. Because my love of God is more important than me getting trashed by this style of music. So that would be pruning. I don't have to get music out. Okay? Lobster. I love lobster. Prune or cut?
Cut.
That's a cut. Okay? Okay, so that's it. That's life in general, is cutting what's forbidden and pruning what's permitted. Pruning means readjusting your settings and how you relate to it. To make sure your kavana, your motives are pure in your relationship to that particular thing. And the best way to test whether your motives are pure in that particular thing is if it were taken away, how would you do? Understand? I mean, obviously anyone's going to do not so well for a few hours if their car stereo got taken. It's definitely going to affect them for a few hours. But you're really holy if you're just like, well, there you have it. Guess I've lost contact with that. Meaning, there's a belief in Kabbalah that everything you have everything in the world has a spiritual counterpart. It wouldn't be here. We've discussed that, right? Everything in this world has a spiritual counterpart in a one-to-one counterpart in Yetzirah. So, I'm also spiritual. So, I spiritually had something to do with that car stereo. That car stereo is mine. I don't want to use me anymore because I don't want to lose my car stereo from saying all this. One's car stereo is his car stereo. They are connected spiritually. But what can happen is that particular car stereo can lose its connection to him. He's done with it. At which point, he may come back to his car and find it gone. So the way we verify whether you still have a connection, there's a way to verify. Let's say you lose something, and this is more for lost objects. If someone loses something, and he wants to verify whether he still has the soul connection to it or he does not, well, obviously, if it comes back, he has a soul connection to it. If it doesn't come back, it's no longer connected. So we have two things we say that will actually bring back your lost object if you still relate to it. one thing is you say, may the God of Meir was one of our sages, may the God of Meir answer me. And you say that 3 times. You say it in Aramaic. And if you say it 3 times, the 3rd time you pop the coin in tzedakah, it'll be there. You'll find it. Or someone will return it to her, or something miraculous will happen. You guys want a great example of that? I was studying in a kollel, Hasidic yeshiva kollel, in a town called Har Nof, on the other side of Jerusalem. And that day I had a new hat, so I put my hat box. It was in a box. I put the hat box by the coffee tea room. Anyway, I was studying, and I looked over every once in a while at my hat box, just saying, new hat, exciting. It's always nice to get something new. And except one of the times I looked over, it was gone. I'm like, oh man, crazy. So I start searching all over for my hat box. I can't find it. So the Rosh Kollel said maybe the Russian janitor threw it in the garbage. He thought it was, because it was next to the garbage, maybe he thought it was garbage. So I go outside to the dumpster, and I look inside the dumpster, and I don't see my hat box. It was one of these giant dumpsters. But I realize inside that dumpster is a beautiful leather briefcase. It's strange. We go into the dumpster, I bring out the briefcase, open it up, and it's full of all kinds of very serious documents, checkbooks, and all kinds of stuff. And obviously the checks have the address on them, which is right down the block. I went down the block to that home and knocked on the door. This man looks panicked, answers the door. And I said, what is it? I said, is this your stuff? He says, yes, it is. How did you get it? What are you doing with this? And I said, I told him my story. He says, that's amazing. He said, because what had happened was he had been broken into. His house on the side of the forest, a nice villa. It was broken into by the forest side. And they had taken all his exterior equipment and everything, all his hi-fi stuff. But they also took this briefcase. So all the other stuff was replaceable except for these documents. So he decided to say, may the God of Meir answer me 3 times, having his briefcase in mind, and then gave tzedakah. And we figured out the time that was exactly when I looked over, my hat was gone. And I went and pulled his briefcase out of the dumpster. It was just bizarre. And I went back up to anyway, we met each other. He was so thankful. I went back to the yeshiva, and I look, and there's my hat box right next to the garbage in the coffee tea room. It was right there. Yeah. There you have it. Okay? So anyway, there's a lot of great stories like that. A lot of great stories. You can even do it for stolen articles, because you never know what they do with it. Sometimes they just dump it. My chavrusa just had a car was broken into. He lost his backpack with his tefillin in it and everything, and it was stolen. And he said, the famous line, "May the God of Meir answer me" 3 times. Put in the coin, having his backpack in mind, and then it was like a while later, he gets a phone call from a rabbi in a synagogue saying, we've got your tefillin here. They're soaking wet. They had been out all night, but whoever stole them just threw this tefillin out the window of his car. And they were fine. They turned out to be fine. Yeah, they weren't soaking wet. They were damp from a night of rain. But cool stuff, huh? Okay, so that's Pesukah de Zimra. Cutting the forbidden love, getting your heart whole with loving God, and pruning the permitted love. Okay? Then there's another elevator. We say Kaddish, and we move our way up to Shema and its blessings. Shema and its blessings. By the way, I want to mention in Pesukah de Zimra, if you'll notice, it talks about things like non-human objects praising God. The stars are praising God. The earth is praising God. The sea creatures are praising God. The animals are praising. It's like, hello, when's the last time you saw any of these things praising God? What is King David talking about? Is he hallucinating? The answer is where is Sukkot Zimmer going on?
Zero.
In Yetzirah. Meaning,